A little more tasty.
The water's so healthy.
I don't know, water's a good thing.
There's something on this chair.
How many board members are there? 9?
Yeah, it's seldom, well, I shouldn't say that, but sometimes they're thin on the ground.
Sometimes they're what?
Thin on the ground,
Thin on the
they
ground.
don't always make it in.
Oh, okay. Well, I understand that, but
If another, yeah, try to club everyone together so they show up.
is there only one from the county or 2?
There's, county commissioners, there's one, I do.
Hey, well,
Alright,
really?
I know.
Yeah,
What's it called?
we'll check with Jonathan.
Uh,
Is he in person? Well, Richard Wolf's gonna have to be over there. I'll take my microphone out there.
Jonathan and Richard. Just trade off or something, yes.
Okay, I'll give him a microphone after I'm done.
Okay.
I just have to do a roll, you know, but, yeah, cause I don't know if everyone shows up or not, but if they do, we don't have no microphones.
Well, sure. Yeah, I know Richard.
Yes.
Well, how's it going?
Alright,
All right.
the fire board had quite a discussion over the parking lot, and
Did you see
they
this?
actually are unanimous and they don't want any money from urban renewal going towards the parking lot. Value there, that's what we're voting on tonight, I think. So
Yeah.
at least there's something they all agree on. It's not good news for you folks.
See where it goes.
Well, I don't imagine the other members of the board are gonna have a problem with it, but I'm kind of probably sound like a broken record, but if it's not, we're gonna put something on the tax rolls and it's not finishing up a project, I mean, it's gonna be a little hard to get me to go, yeah, no, I wanna do that, you know? But
Maybe what the fire board is on it. Good to know.
yeah, they definitely want it to sunset also, and it's, we talked quite a bit about maybe we should be specific about the reasons that we need money, and that's why they don't want urban renewal, is they feel they need the money worse than the projects that are funded by urban renewal. But I don't know, I don't think they were ready last night to pin down. And I brought up the fact that when Palmer came and asked the city for some money for that training tower, is very specific what the money would go for, you know. But we're not anywhere near time to vote whether we're gonna sunset or not. So there's plenty of time if they wanna try to be more specific, but I told them, I said, I can sit there and tell everybody what I think the money should go for. But in the spirit of a board,
Yeah.
should try to represent what you guys see as a priority. But my big concern right now, and I kind of brought it up last month, was competing with lack of medical people, specific paramedics. But everybody knows there's shortage of nurses and doctors, and in this town it's probably more pronounced than other places. But I'm willing to really knuckle down and try to be as competitive as possible.
We, college, I know it's expanding the Sim Center up there, but they've been attending as, because I was originally, so they attended the association, fire association, it's like Good River, Wasco, Sherman meeting like once a month, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think they are, but I'm not 100% sure.
But Shane, I know Shane wanted to keep the fire districts engaged with that Sim Center up there. For training.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that the management down there also wants the college to put a priority on the paramedic program. And I'm not saying that they aren't. I don't know what their problem is, but they haven't been able to get one started yet. So they're trying to find other paramedic programs to put some of the current employees in. And I'm all for that, but they're finding they're full, which the good side of that is at least we have persons around the state that decided they want to be paramedics. It seemed like for a while, perhaps because of COVID, people were like, yeah, I want nothing to do with medical stuff, you know.
I
But
think COVID just a lot of people temporarily away from healthcare. My
yeah,
kids are both in healthcare. Was their experience.
yeah,
I think it's coming back. I know paramedic has been on the radar up there. I've been out of touch with it long enough now.
Well,
James Griffin is attending because if you can, the way to get to a paramedic program is to find out what the whole regional need is. So not only Mid-Columbia, but all the other fire districts in the area, what's the group demand, if you start a program, how many students should be scaled to and how many years should it run?
I mean, many years ago, I worked for the college back in, 2001, 2002. Yeah. And I was working there prior to the nursing program, because I remember when it the person I worked under was kind of co-opted and could hardly get any of her time because the nursing program had,
Linda.
yeah, taken a whole bunch of her time. And
Linda Carter.
no, Linda Quackenbush.
Oh, Linda Quackenbush, okay.
That's who I was working directly under. Now, this other Linda might have been in charge of the nursing program.
She was overall.
But Quackenbush was pulled away from the stuff I was involved in because her boss said, I need you over here working on this stuff too. I understood, but I was trying to say there should be a paramedic program way back then. And some of the argument I got didn't hold water, and that was, well, let's say we train 10 paramedics, there isn't enough positions here for 10 paramedics that we just train. I go, it doesn't matter. They will find work, you know? Well, we don't know there'll be that many students from this area sign up. It doesn't matter. Everything else is full. People will move here to go to the, it's really only 1 year because they can get like their A&P and a lot of the other classes closer to home, you know what I'm saying? But the actual paramedic part of it takes about a year.
That's why I'm curious whether, the college is still attending those. But that was a big part of the purpose of arranging that. And I don't know if you can check with Bob. Do you attend those yourself?
No, they've never asked me to go to those. They asked me to go to these, but, so one of our directors, Diana Bailey, is working for the college of the nursing program and stuff. And a lot of the board members and management thought it was a green light, it was gonna start up, and then kind of boom, there's a problem, and I'm not sure. Bailey kind of said something about, you know, getting the curriculum ready and stuff like that, but the state's particular, and you gotta have somebody that meets all their qualifications to be the lead person, you know? And I was assured at one time they had somebody that could do that, and so it makes no sense to me that it didn't go. Because to me, that was the big hurdle, but apparently there was some other hurdle that they couldn't clear in time or something.
Well, check with Diane or somebody, I just, that's where I left. So.
Yeah, well, it seems like she's kind of a little bit closed lip about stuff that has to do with her work. She isn't.
You're on the right-hand side of Darcy.
I'm always a little to the right of Darcy anyway.
I'm gonna grab something off my desk here, well.
Okay.
Dan? In case someone needs one.
Oh,
Or do you want me to just have them here? Okay. Dan? Did you see Richard Wolf's, question there?
I'll be right back. Oh.
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay, so there we go.
I'm not sure how a person would fill that out. He's asking for ideas, but also has yes, no, maybe.
Feel the place? Yeah.
There's with a view from Federal Street to the top of the hill.
No,
I don't know.
got it.
I don't know.
Sorry about that. I guess I should have, but I haven't.
Well, no, I'm just, I'm sure he has a vision of what he's thinking, you know, but. You said there's 19 board members altogether?
Fine.
Well, 9. That makes more sense.
Need a bigger room for me.
That's still a pretty big, a pretty good sized board. Well, there's 4 city council positions. or-
Three.
It just, it says number 4, but,
That's his district.
oh, I see. I see.
We've got Richardson, Long, and McLaughlin are all councilors.
Yeah.
Scott
Well,
Hagan.
we had a 1 and a 2 and a 4.
Yeah, they're not all supposed to be together.
Here where they sit at. Okay with me. You afraid they're gonna hit each other?
Yeah. See, then I get all the.
Here, put me on the end. I like having a little window, please. You might not even be here. He's starting with, school, so I never got.
Oh, is he not gonna be there? We accepted the
I
invitation.
didn't say he's not gonna be here. I said, well, maybe he wouldn't even make it. I was trying to soften the blow.
Hey, if he doesn't show, will you do that so I have an easier time getting everybody on the camera?
You bet.
Thanks.
A window seat here. Um. That's what's on the radar.
On the road all day. Yeah, yesterday was our wedding anniversary. And we decided, 24. We decided to go to the Seahawks game. Yeah, that was an interesting, interesting evening.
When did you come back?
Huh?
When did you come back? Not usually.
About 45 minutes ago.
Wait,
Seahawks won, didn't they?
They did in the last 28 seconds.
Well, that made it worth going up there then.
I know. Yeah. I didn't know, but apparently the Eagles have not beaten the Seahawks home or away since 2008.
Yeah.
They don't meet very often, but yeah, we had a friend of ours that was a big time Eagles fan, and yeah, it's interesting.
You'll get over it.
Yeah, eventually, I hope.
It's just a game,
It's under the
lots of money.
meeting schedule today.
Ah, it's no problem. I took my laptop with me, so. Good history lesson, by the way. Interesting. The
Lots
stuff you
of-
sent me from Steve and.
Yeah, we got some ground to cover.
Yeah,
In mind to my curfew.
What's they falling?
Keep in mind to my curfew tonight.
Aim for 8 o'clock.
It seems reasonable, you know.
That's pretty. Pretty level, huh?
I will remember.
Oh, I've got one. I just like it. Just started. I need one.
Going at. Right, fair enough.
You, know of any progress with the Salt Commons? Is any new news there or?
That's really. Interest rates are.
She hasn't secured the loan yet because interest rates.
That's comment here last week about maybe looking at fixed drops.
So she's kind of gonna wait if they do.
Helpful.
Yeah.
But that translates into it. Anything's gonna be better at this point. So,
So there's something in the hopper maybe about the port. Port, is there a project that's gonna be asked for or something to do something with the, like the
well, my
boat basin area?
hearing isn't the best.
The
Crank all the way
boat
up.
basin area and stuff that, in there a project that is gonna,
Basin?
yeah, is it already started or it's gonna be
Oh.
decided on or?
Heard anything. I know that they've been looking for funding to
Okay,
build those docks that were damaged fire.
actually, they may ask for urban renewal money, but they haven't yet. Yeah, I didn't know. I can't even remember exactly what I heard, but something about the boat, the marina, the boat basin area, yeah. And I know that there was 2 fires there.
I feel there's 2 fires and I don't know if they're.
Oh yeah, it's a big knockdown, drag out fight over who's gonna do the cleanup. Maybe the cleanup's done. Maybe the cleanup's done, but there was a lot of controversy over who was responsible for the cleanup.
Yeah. I haven't.
I wouldn't blame
Request come
You know,
through.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I probably should ask the rep with the port.
Yeah, I checked with him. Craig,
So I need to find that invoice, like, how you go.
Right name?
Get me an email about it.
Making sure I'm in the right spot. Good, how are you doing?
Getting to see our daughter for a few days, and that's nice.
You what?
So we're getting to see our daughter for a few days, and that's.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, Annie and I are gonna go down to Phoenix
Sure.
Excellent.
just after New Year's.
Yeah,
And then, yeah,
see how she's doing.
huh?
See how she's doing.
Yeah.
Good, good.
I think she's gonna move to the Seattle area. I don't remember exactly where.
That's close. That's
All right.
Yeah, so it'll be way easier,
like cutting the difference or splitting the difference, you know?
massively.
Mr. Ring,
How are you doing?
good, how are you?
Good, good.
Over on trip? You guys have a good trip?
Great.
How many days were you gone?
Oh, we did two
Reached out to Darcy earlier this week.
last week. We left Sunday, came home Thursday afternoon. And then Sunday we went to Seattle and then last night we went to Seattle.
Oh, fun.
So that.
We haven't.
Yeah.
Kids are finally.
Everybody's self-sufficient and, right?
Yeah,
Good.
how have you guys been?
We're good. Everybody's home.
Some of them were.
Nice.
Say your organ.
Doing good. Basketball game this afternoon, so this worked out good.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, they moved it from the typical 7 o'clock thing to 3
Mhm.
because it was North Bend. So they had a long drive.
I think we're better off.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to, didn't even miss.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, he took.
Who's gonna be here for Christmas at your house?
um, just the boys.
Boys, no Katie, huh?
No, we'll go down after New Year's.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sounds.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's right.
Yeah.
It's not 100
Right.
degrees.
How's she liking it?
I think she's liking it okay.
Good.
Okay. And I don't hear of anybody. I think I'll wait. I think I'll wait to the new year. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
You won't be good at shit. Provide all those.
Yeah, I mean, the first national banks. Yeah, cool. Hello, Mr. Dim, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
All right.
Good. Getting ready for the holidays?
Good time of year.
It certainly is.
Hey, Darce.
How are you, Stacy?
Good to see you.
Yeah. It's quiet in here. Well, at least we have quorum, I guess. Hmm.
And everybody.
Oh, morning, afternoon, whatever it is.
Still a few minutes to go.
Mhm. Nobody online? Shannon's not there. Yeah.
Dan's way over there. Yeah.
It's important.
You might move over later.
It'd be better.
Yeah, I can see everybody.
Jonathan? Tim? Sir? Ben? Oh, I got my little switch in and I have the microphone cable and the little connector. So I'll have that to replace. It's a cutoff switch.
It works. Works okay.
It's going to. So that we can,
I gotta have you sort of separate.
should have brought it tonight to plug it in.
Sort of separate.
Do that. Pass down.
I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency Board, December 19th, 2023. Could I please have a roll call?
Stacy Coburn.
Here.
Walter Denstedt,
Here.
Scott Hagee.
Here.
Darcy Long,
Here.
Tim McLaughlin.
Here.
Dan Richardson,
Here.
Shannon Saldivar,
Here.
Marcus Swift.
Here.
and Ben Ring.
Here,
Thank you, Paula. And we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Are there any changes to the agenda? So I should ask that first. Staff's not waving frantically. Okay.
I move approval of the agenda.
Been moved by board member Coburn,
I'll second.
seconded by, oh, I forgot your last name already.
You're
Right. To approve the agenda, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. The first one is from October 17th of 2023. Are there any changes or additions to the October 17th minutes? Seeing and hearing none, could I have a motion, please?
I move to pass the approval of the minutes as presented.
Just for the October minutes at this moment.
October.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the October minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'll abstain. I wasn't here.
So one abstention, Scott Hagee. Okay, so now we have approval of the 11/21/23 minutes. I do have one correction. Both in the present and absent section are listed Hagee, Richardson, and Saldivar, but they were actually all absent, so we're just making that correction. Are there any other corrections or additions to the minutes?
I have one correction.
Yes.
I was listed as being in favor of the agenda, but I was absent, so I didn't vote in that motion.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yep. So that's the other one. Any additional corrections, changes, additions? I'll take a motion for an as amended.
I'll approve make a motion to approve the minutes for November 21st as amended.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I'll Abstain again. abstain as well.
And we have two abstentions, Hagee and Richardson. Thank you. Okay. Next, we're gonna have a public comment section. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject any subject that does not later appear on the agenda. 5 minutes per person will be allowed. And I did want to just make a note, because of some Zoom bombings that we had during city council recently, we have changed the participation engagement rules for online only. So at this point, if people want to speak online to us, they need to let Paula know by noon the day of. So right now we're just trying that out. We're trying to balance the need to have public participation without a lot of barriers, but also preventing what happened to us because that was bad. So anyway, is there anyone who would like to participate in public comment? Come on forward. Well, here we have 5.
I'm Richard Wolf. I'm from the Dalles, Oregon.
I'm sorry, one second. Paula, we need to get Richard a microphone.
Oh, and also the timer, there's a timer. Got it.
Is there bonds?
Okay.
Is it ready?
E-
Hello,
Yep, we got a timer.
my name is Richard Wolf. I'm from the Dalles, Oregon, class of 72. A friend made a outline for me to follow here, and he said it's supposed to last 3 minutes, so I should be able to get through this. My family actually moved here at 68. I graduated from the Dalles High here. Actually dropped out and then went back to join the Navy. Well, did it the right way. I'm here to speak about the project on Federal Street Plaza. I've been talking with members of the community from the Tony's building, 1 block east and across the street, and then 1 block west and across the street, and up and down Federal Street. And one person, Tony, I don't remember his last name, on First Street. I think Adams is located on First Street, the back of it. I tried to get to everybody and some other business uptown and kids. I have the Tony's building brick. I have the Tony's building brick. I did not know what was going to happen with the brick. And then I found out about the plaza idea, and I'm hanging on to the brick to see what is decided. There are many avenues for the brick. I have been a general contractor, project manager, I think since I was about 8. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and it was made. I've got it dated about 1865, and I'd like that proven either or. But handmade was suggested behind Mill Creek. I also have the glue lamb beams, and they're 50 foot long and 44 inches tall from the ground and 12 inches wide, 8 or 12. They're in storage also. I've designed plans. I read all schematics. I don't draw all schematics, elevations, know a little bit of geology. It was my responsibility to know what every subcontractor's doing before the inspector showed up. I needed to qualify the job site before the inspection, so I didn't set back the other subcontractors. I've reached out to all concerned members of the community and have compiled the survey list that I've passed out to you and emailed yesterday. The date is wrong. I thought it was last week that this meeting would be happening. The results you have tonight, and I'm not here to discuss those. They're for your observation. You'll find dozens of uses and suggestions for its future. And there are still people, I've received 5 more, and there are still ideas coming in. One of them was mural on the existing wall that's exposed right away. I was pretty surprised about the first one on there, and then a couple of my ideas didn't go over so well, which is very acceptable. You will find green space, benches, boat tour destination. He added that one on there. It's a good idea. Vendors, live musician and performance stage, opportunity music, food court, observation tower. I wish to preserve history and of my hometown. I'm passionate about my hometown. And we're missing things like what we would do. How would we get up on the bluff in 1865? And we would use the switchback. There was a switchback before there was brewery grade, and should be a study there. Most people now, I'm 70, most people now do not know of a water tower located across from the Chamber of Commerce for the steam engines. I have capabilities of reaching the right people to design an access to the marina and hanging off the side of the existing bridge. I've talked with the engineer out at Tennyson, and there is a capability of putting the glue lamps back up on there and creating a pickleball court, batting cages, basketball, then surface overlay, not for a drive on, over the top of the 1/4 inch and minus fill sand. We could use tie downs. We will need permission from the current owner now, possibly, you mentioned. I got a quote on the cost, but I haven't drawn any plans. And I thought it was kind of expensive. I see that we're spending more money than we should be for projects and for out of town people to make the trip and their lodging and such. And we have people here. I left town to join the Navy, and I didn't have a place to learn what I wanted to learn. I left town and started out in cabinet making and upholstery. And
Mr. Wolf. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
But we are over, but I appreciate this. I appreciate the document provided, and perhaps you and I could talk at some other time so I can hear the rest of what you
Can
have
I
to
get
say.
this last part in? Can I ask for 10 seconds?
Certainly.
I wish the Urban Renewal Board to consider my historic preservation intentions and consider me as a community member to oversee development concepts. Sincerely, Richard Wolf.
Thank you. Appreciate your participation. Do I have any other audience member comments? Assuming you're later. Okay, great. Now we're going to move on to our action item number 7A, our intergovernmental development agreement between the City of the Dalles and the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency, parking lot development 600 and 608 East 3rd Street.
Great, thank you. Chair Long, board members, Joshua Chandler, Community Development Department. So the City of the Dalles is preparing for the acquisition, development, and revitalization of several substantial properties. And this isn't the City of the Dalles, the organization, this is the city. These developments include Wasco County's administration moving to the Gobi building, a new grocery store at 315 Federal Street, a multi-story development known as the Basalt Commons. We're very familiar with that. The Tony site redeveloping at some point. One consideration for all these developments is the impact that they may have on downtown parking. Although current data shows that we have an adequate supply of on-street parking, these developments will, in fact, add to the overall impact of parking downtown. Goal F of the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Plan anticipates this issue, and it states, to provide an adequate amount of, this is a goal, to provide an adequate amount of parking for property located and designated off-street parking, including disabled parking, this needs to be changed, in the downtown area, including a plan and program to effectively pay for, manage, and maintain such parking. So ultimately, the goal is saying that the agency supports looking into the development of surface parking lots. The city staff recently identified 2 adjoining properties under common ownership within a few blocks of the developments that we listed for the city to acquire. These are located at 600 and 608 East Third Street. This is the site of the former Griffith Motors used car dealership. You'll see by that really cool sign that they have right on the corner. If developed, these parcels would create an additional 23 public parking spaces downtown with one ADA space. Staff has provided a rendering of this as attachment 1. Location of these parcels complements public parking in our downtown core. Currently, the city owns a parking lot across the street from the old St. Peter's Landmark, which is our Arco lot. We can consider that as our west side public parking area. We also have the First Street parking lots between Washington and Laughlin. The agency actually also owns 2 lots down in that area. We consider those to be north central parking spaces. And there's also a parking lot just past the roundabout, which you could consider as east side parking. However, the roundabout parking is a little less accessible for people, for downtown users. So this East Third Street location really is resembles, and it will be much better for an actual east side parking area. Agency staff has previously briefed the board on this, and this was to be a partnership with the city to acquire and develop the off-street parking. And this would be, a consideration would be that the agency and the city would evenly share the acquisition and development of these lots. So looking into the acquisition, these 2 parcels were most recently purchased in May 2023 for $350,000 and $105,000. City staff engaged with the current owner and negotiated an agreement to acquire both parcels at $484,163.79. This is slightly higher than, this is a 6.6% increase from 2023 when the property owner purchased these lots. Phase 1 was also conducted by the current property owner. So there is a phase 1 that was conducted on the property, found no evidence of hazardous material. So the development of the site to create, to turn those 2 lots into parking, staff estimates a cost of $485,151.02 to develop both parcels into parking. The scope would include ultimately dropping the grade of one of the neighboring parcels. The lots are about 3 feet off of each other, so we'd need to bring one of the lots down to the level of what's currently the used car lot. We would also include street frontage landscaping, and also any of the finishes that would be required per the city's parking lot code. Looking at the unique sign that's on the property, there is the thought of reusing, preserving this sign, relocating it. That is not a cost that's considered at this point. We've yet to look into that. At the November 27th city council meeting, city staff recommended the acquisition of these parcels, and council approved the request. Following that decision, agency staff drafted an intergovernmental agreement that would be between the city and the agency to split the cost 50-50 for the total acquisition and public parking development. For the looking at budget implications, per the intergovernmental agreement, development agreement, the acquisition of development costs would be split between the 2, resulting in the total agency obligation of $484,657.40. There's a breakdown here for you to kind of take a look at what the purchase price of both lots are, the estimated cost for the development, and overall, this comes to a total cost of $969,314, and split evenly, it's that $484,657,000 that I mentioned. So this can be budgeted. Well, this can be paid for through the Urban Renewal's Capital Projects Fund. Currently have an approved budget for this fiscal year at little under $2.6 million. So there's still a significant amount of funds available for this and other projects that any that come up between now and June. Taking a look at tax implications, because that is, what we do here with the agency. In 2003, these parcels had a combined tax roll of $3,849. So one thing to consider is acquiring this and using it as public public parking, it will take those lots off of the tax roll. So that's something to consider. The acquisition and development of the site will result in these two tax parcels coming, or these two lots coming off the tax parcel. Excuse me, coming off the tax rolls. And with that, staff recommends move to authorize the agency manager to execute an intergovernmental development agreement with the city, the Dalles, as presented. I've attached, the intergovernmental agreement is attached as attachment number 2. With that, I am more than happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Quick question. How did, so there's the last parking study that I recall, and I think you mentioned a quick reference to it, was that there was adequate on-street parking. What sort of provisions exist under that study for, like, how much of a surplus do we have of on-street parking downtown?
I would have to take a look at those numbers again. It was a significant amount.
Okay.
And this was also a lot that wasn't included in that study. So
Okay,
to
yeah,
add this to it, then that it would be that much more.
okay.
That study was prior to the Hanlon project.
Correct. Yeah, it was specific for the Hanlon project. It was a site specific study. We're also actually going to be finishing up a contract here in probably this month for a downtown parking study that we'll be doing over this next year, over the first probably the spring. We'll be taking on an overall downtown parking assessment, not just for the confines of where the Basalt Commons is located.
Other questions, comments?
I have some comments. I don't really have any questions, I don't think, because I think you covered this. I think I understand what's going on. There's no confusion that I'm aware of. But probably I'm going to have people get tired of hearing me say this, but I'm looking for things that put something on the tax rolls or is finishing things that's already been started. And so at the fire board meeting last night, I kind of kicked off the discussion with that. And there was a fair amount of discussion amongst all the board members. And one nice thing is you unified the fire board. They're all opposed to putting any money from urban renewal into the parking lot. And I think primarily the two reasons I cited, but there was some other discussion too. So, I just have one vote, and even if this whole group votes no, the city certainly could move forward on this and everything, but there's like I've already discussed too, is there's a overwhelming desire for that board to see this urban renewal thing sunset. And we talked a little bit about, well, it's not just a given date, but it's when all the $6 million and something is spent, is the way I understand it. So, but they're not wanting to spend it on this parking lot. They're not wanting to race towards sunset just by spending money as fast as they can. But so I'm geared up to vote, I guess, for option 2. There's 2 options.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else?
Question for staff.
Yeah.
So if we were to not approve this agreement, would the funds that are going to be allocated for this in any way then be able to go to a fire district to support them in their work?
I guess not directly. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
One
Oh,
really-
Shannon, yes.
I was wondering if there were any other locations that were looked at for additional parking.
Yes, there was.
Okay. Yeah. I'll
Sorry to
let
jump in.
The attorney speak to that.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Chair Long, do you mind if I just answer this quick question?
Yeah, the city was evaluating a number of different lots. One that comes to mind right away was, oh, I don't know if we talked about all this publicly. That's the hard part of this job sometimes.
On First Street.
Yeah, on First Street. There's the Sedition lot. It was the lot formerly known as Sedition Brewing.
Mhm.
And we had some ample discussions as a city with the owners of that lot to develop that into parking. That was one alternative. And we had another one as well. I can't recall off the top of my head, but neither one of those was as promising as the prospect of developing these lots for the location based reasons that the agency manager just articulated, as well as for the asking price. Um, and so hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, that did. And then I had one other question. Is the person who's selling the lot related to anybody who works with the city? Or are they prior grant recipients?
No.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, well, just one, thank you, Chair. One follow-up question. If there's this, I'm a little bit conflicted because if the parking study that we got from the Basalt Commons shows that there's adequate parking and potentially even a surplus, I'm confused as to why we need to add additional parking at this time to the downtown area.
Yeah, it's a, I mean, it's a great question. A lot of it is, also planning for the future. We are trying to push as much as we can to redevelop our downtown. The downtown has a lot of lots that can be redeveloped. There's a lot of upstairs, vacant upstairs areas of so many buildings downtown that could all be residential units. Then also the opportunity buying this parcel gives us the opportunity, or the city, the opportunity to kind of land bank it ultimately. So in the future, it could be developed into something else. But yes, to your point, the numbers have shown that there is enough parking, at least for that specific development. We've yet to see what the rest of the downtown has to hold, but I mean, it is really planning for the future and planning and hoping that we continue to see the growth that we're started to see lately.
Thanks. I don't know. I'm perplexed that we're, potentially going in and purchasing a lot with the intent of it becoming a parking lot. And we don't really know. We we seem right now we have a surplus, and I'm sure that my hope is that we eventually run out of that surplus. I think we all want to see that, but I'm like kind of hesitant on like doing that right now, especially if we know that we can earmark it for, what was the term that you used? I'm sorry, Josh. Sort of like bank it, land.
Yeah, you got land bank it.
I'm not sure that that's I mean, if we're going to buy something and use it for, buy it for a purpose, we ought to use it for that purpose. I'm apprehensive about, putting it in the bank, so to speak, for later development, something other than what we intended it to be, in this case, a parking lot.
Anyone else have questions or comments? Okay, so my comments would be that I thought a lot about this, and I think I like to look a little farther down the road than we typically do as a city. 20 years is our plan. That's what's required of us. But I think in terms of what about 100 years from now? 100 years ago, people made good decisions for us that put us where we're at. And there's not a lot of land downtown that's just available in general at this point. We've looked at parking garages for the future. Those are extremely expensive. That's just something that I learned looking into that. And the other thing I've mentioned before, and I agree with people who say we shouldn't do things just for the perception, but there is a lot of community concern about developing the Basalt Commons, which we know from as much intense study as we put into it, that we really need that housing. And there is a lot of perception that somehow we're short shrifting ourselves and other businesses that exist down there by not having adequate parking. And so by, taking this opportunity now, I think we're setting ourselves up for the future when there is future development and there won't necessarily be land available for on-street or off-street parking. So, I understand the concerns that we have. I don't like taking things off the tax rolls, but all in all, it's a fairly small amount. And hopefully it does spur additional development in the future, which would increase the tax base, which the fire department is going to need, because as we add residences and things on the second floor, we definitely have to have a way to pay for the safety apparatuses and the staff and everything else that's required in their budget, amongst other agencies. Is there any additional comments or concerns on this before we go to a vote? I want to make sure everybody had time to say what they had to say.
How about just a quick question? So has the city purchased these lots already?
Chair Long, I can sort of weigh in on the timeline here. So at the most recent city council meeting in November, or the one right, 27th, right after Thanksgiving, the council adopted a special ordinance. And the special ordinance authorizes the city manager to execute an agreement to acquire the lots. But the special ordinance doesn't become effective for 30 days after it's adopted by the council. And that, I believe, is December 26th. And so on December 26th, that special ordinance will take effect, and the city manager will be authorized to sign an agreement, which would then transfer title to the city once we record the deeds. And so that's the very long answer to a really simple question. But the process is working its way out. Technically, the city does not own those lots yet. However, the city will own them as soon as those deeds get recorded, and they're not authorized to be recorded until December 26th.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
Scott, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but a question just occurred to me. You might have heard possibly about the county's move to the Gobi building and whether you would be able to contain all the required parking in the sort of integral lot that's right underneath or not. Any thoughts on that?
For sure not. Yeah.
For sure. You're going to
No,
need
I
more
think-
parking on the street or nearby for staff.
Yeah. I mean, I think the discussions, we've been looking at parking alternatives as well.
Yeah.
So I think honestly, we're looking towards city lots for probably a large portion of the parking that our staff would need.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to authorize the agency manager to execute an intergovernmental development agreement with the city of the Dalles as presented.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Nay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next we have a discussion item, 8A, the Urban Renewal Plan Review, Affirmation or Modification of Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency Goals and Objectives.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and everyone for being here tonight. This could be a little bit extended. I will try to wrap up by 8 o'clock. I'm going to do my best on that one. It's listed as a discussion item, so there will be no motion, no action taken, but I'm definitely looking for guidance, specific guidance from all of you as we launch this next phase of really updating and taking a close look at the plan itself. and thus setting guidance for the agency going forward. Last month, we went over the history of the agency in some detail, some of the different things that have been accomplished through the years. This time, and we started to go into the goals and objectives at that time, but really didn't have time to go into any detail. So subsequently, I circulated a kind of a questionnaire to all of you with some questions about the agency, what you thought, where we might be going. Some folks had time to respond, some did not. So rather than try to compile the responses we received, it really would not have been representative of the entire group. So I'd like to go over some of those questions tonight. Some of the questions really need to come later because they're project oriented. And I wanted to go into a little bit of background on the difference between goals, objectives, and specific projects. Goals and objectives really set the broader landscape for where the agency ought to be going. We've talked about parking tonight, for instance. That's one of the things called out. We talk about a number of different things in these broader goals and objectives. So that's really where the discussion needs to focus at this level, at this time. And then looking toward January, February. January, we'll have a more detailed fiscal analysis of the project, including a presentation from our consultant, Tiberius Solutions, and from Elaine. All right, thank you very much. Our statewide consultant on urban renewal. In February, looking more towards specific projects. As the agency winds that clock down toward the maximum indebtedness in 2029, how should we best invest those funds? Should we look toward some specific projects? Should we look toward opportunity driven? Where might that go? But tonight I'd like to focus on the broad landscape. And so with that, let's start with only the first three questions that I posed in presentation. And the first one is, has the Urban Renewal Agency achieved its purpose? What problems was it designed to address? And that second sentence, I'd draw your attention to the mission statement. The mission of the Urban Renewal Agency is to eliminate blight and depreciating property values within the agency's jurisdiction, and in the process, attract aesthetically pleasing, job-producing private investments that will stabilize or increase property values and protect the area's historic places and values. So just to that first bullet point on page 2 of the staff report, has the agency achieved its purpose? What is your feedback? I'd ask for specific comments to that one, and then I'm going to go on to the next one. Have those problems been resolved? Again, my appreciation to those who did respond via email, but looking for additional responses on that one. This is really, and it helps us guide. Do we need the agency going forward? Big fundamental question.
Lots.
And again, Dan, we're asking, has the Urban Renewal Agency achieved its purpose? That's the first question. And what was it designed to address?
I would ask you to speak up just a little bit, sir.
Sure, you bet.
So I think obviously one of the first things is blight. That's a primary one. But then we also, the purpose was to increase the tax values downtown to help the agencies who are temporarily foregoing their tax revenue. So I would say, in my personal opinion, that we have really been moving toward that much more rapidly in the last few years than we were at the very beginning. And we've had a lot more to show for it, which has eased public tension and negative feedback. I wouldn't say that we've totally achieved that, but I feel like we've finally gotten into a rhythm with what we're doing, and we're seeing some progress.
Appreciate that. Other comments, observations on that question? Kind of facilitating dialogue here. If not, we'll go on to the next one.
I mean, I would say I concur largely with what Darcy said. I mean, obviously there's still more to do. We're never gonna like get everything done. So, I mean, you just do the best job you can. And I'd say that, progress has been made, good things have happened, maybe some not perfect things, but it's it's okay.
I would suggest we're better off for the Sunshine Mills prosperous operation. That was in part an URA project or incentivized funded project. I think we're probably better off for the recreation building being redeveloped, occupied, the Granada being occupied, operated. So I take your point. It's like being a homeowner. You're never done with the house, right? You just keep working and try and make improvements and upgrades. And it seems like there have been several that we could point to. It'd be at least interesting if maybe a lot of homework to see a story map or a report of the projects that Urban Renewal has completed, sort of in one place.
Anyone else?
Well,
Go ahead, Tim.
I go back to 1974 when I first visited the Dalles. And from where we were in 1974 to current, the east side development was really a site. It was blight on from Stewart Radiator. And at the time, the building, which was the Columbia Brewing, and that stands with the development on that side with Sunshine, with what I've seen and observed. And I don't know if the urban was well, it was with Sunshine, but in part of a parking lot, those are opportunity driven when they come open. And so what you have to do is look for the future. And that end of town, I believe, is going to be our next development, especially with the buildings that are being marketed and sold on that end of town. I see a lot of potential in that. So it's how can urban development assist in revitalizing, I think, is what we're looking at, because our city has changed in the last 50 years, where at one time at the downtown, it was Moto Day, it was women's clothing, it was 2 drugstores. Those have all gone. And what have we replaced it with? And I think that's where urban development can come in to help guide the development to make it prosperous and vital. And that's where all of the staff comes in to provide the support and the research so that we know that we're making good decisions. We have not always we've made decisions, especially with the development of the hotel complex in the downtown core, because that's why we moved down to secure property at that time. And we found out that there were so many things that interfered with that project, which was the Hilton Gardens. And we were also looking at the possibility of developing a convention center in our city with a hotel, and what better place than the downtown, the Dalles. And yes, that did not turn out lucrative and it did not finalize. But we learned from those mistakes, I think. So in my opinion, I think that the urban development resources, well, I've been on council, almost 12, 13 years. And I have seen, especially with the development of the underpass going to, now I don't know if that was urban development. I think that may have been
Partly was. It partly
okay.
was.
Then that was a sizable move to open up the downtown corridor. That has been a major development, and the Lewis and Clark Festive Park, I see it utilized constantly now, and that's growing in popularity and usage. One thing I would like to see, and this is at the bottom of when you go to the boat dock, to the right, there's a little cove that's in there. It would be a great place to repair that and offer a beachfront for city So the kids get off the docks and they can go over and swim during the summer months, and put a protected area and have a place on the river where people can go down and gather and swim and picnic. And that would be, in my opinion, a perfect location. And it wouldn't take much to develop that. But that's a possible project in the future that would enhance the usage of that area, would be, I think, low cost, and it would benefit the community. That's one project that I see. I see more using vertical housing, as we are confined by the boundaries that we are faced with. So the only thing that we can do to provide housing is to go up, and the downtown corridor seems to be the place to do that in. But what we find is making it ADA accessible and the cost that's associated with that. But if you think about it, in every one of those corner buildings, for example, the Williams building has an elevator. Could we use that elevator to supply an access point to all of the buildings on that side and develop housing all the way down that block, on the Williams block on 2nd Street, down, it used to be Monahan's, and where we could build a 2nd story. That way we could utilize and minimize the cost. Over on the other side, you have at Craig's, you also have an elevator shaft in there that could be developed. And if you go down to the next block, you also have the, what is that building on the 2nd? It wasn't Elks. It's above Pioneer Electric.
IOOF.
And if you've not been in there, it's like walking back in the past, but I do believe they have an elevator in that building as well.
So, I think I'm going to interrupt you. I'm sorry,
right,
Tim,
I'm
but,
done.
well, no, just
Oh, no,
let
I
me
just
finish
want-
what I'm saying, because, these are project specific and they're very good. And I think I would like to bring them back up again when we do projects. I just want to make sure that we're covering have we achieved our purpose and what problems were those? So that's all I want to say. I do want to know your
Right.
stuff later. Anybody else?
Well, I think everybody's doing the best they can, and keeping in mind that one of the goals is to increase the tax base. I don't think anybody's forgot that that was a goal. And I see that beautification of the city is a high priority, and everybody wants to live in a place that looks nice, where people are safe, where people can go out in their community and not have to sit inside a building with bars like you would in a lot of countries where we don't have what we have in the United States, and we want the Dalles to be a good example. And it's not at all a criticism of anybody, but there is a part of what's necessary, and everybody recognizes this, that the mean income of the people in the community has a ton to do with whether this community thrives or not. And maybe everybody understands that, but you certainly get hit in the face with some of our problems with having an increased number of people in poverty when you go down there where they feed people that are hungry, and you see the mess that's created there. Everybody sees that. But what you don't see, that I saw when I was working in EMS, is you go inside everybody's homes and you can see over time how the decreased mean income of the community has deteriorated a bunch of the town that you don't see. So, and that doesn't mean we don't want our town to look nice, but we're going to be able to achieve that goal of having the ideal town if we also are able to help the town thrive in that way that I've described. And I know you're all in favor of that, but we've seen many times where people talk about family wage jobs, and we're going to bring them here, and then it turns out to be a false promise.
Any other thoughts, comments, Shannon or Marcus? Yeah, Ben?
A quick question. Being one of the newest members to this board, I've had a great lesson in history over the last few weeks. And it's much appreciated. And one of the second question you have is, have those problems been resolved? And I think just like my observation is, I think many of them have been addressed in the past. I guess I maybe add a little bit of a question to it is, how has it changed? How have those problems changed? Like, what are we faced with now that we weren't faced with like 10, 15, 20 years ago? And that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Like when you sent this mail out or email out initially, was how things have maybe changed, and is it significant enough to maybe like change things a little bit, or update what we're going to go after over the next few years?
Excellent. Marcus, you look like you leaned forward to say something.
Just that I've submitted my feedback to staff as requested. So I don't have anything that I need to repeat here. They have all my answers.
Thank you, Marcus, for doing so.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's fine. It's also for people who are commenting. I mean, it's good to know what you think. Okay. Were you going to say something, Dan?
No.
Casey, did you want a chance to add anything? Shannon, no? Okay. All right. Looks like everybody's commented.
Really, and your comment, how have those problems changed? I think that's a really good lead in to the next big topic, is objectives and looking over these goals and objectives. That's exactly the type of question I think we want to keep in mind as we go through these, really one by one, with the idea that we and this changes to these actually do go to city council, but do we actually drop some? Do we add new ones? Do we modify them? Consolidate them? Are they all good the way they are? These are all fundamental questions we can be asking right now. And so keep that in mind, and keep that question in mind. Have the problems changed? 30 years. That's how long this agency's been around. 31 years. So, yeah, changed. How? With that, without further ado, read the mission statement earlier. Let's go down to the first one. To make strategic investments of urban renewal funds and engage in various urban renewal activities which increase the value of properties within the urban renewal district. Are we good with that? We want to change it. We want to drop it. We want to keep it.
Read it one more time for me, please. Read it one more time for me, please.
Certainly. To make strategic investments of urban renewal funds and engage in various urban renewal activities which increase the value of properties within the urban renewal district.
And if anyone's visual, that's on page 21 of our packet.
What did you say, Darcy?
Oh, I just said if anyone was visual and likes to look at stuff, it's on page 21 in our
gotcha.
packet.
Yeah, to me, I mean, that's like the kind of the core of urban renewal. I mean, you know, just the big picture. So, I mean, that to me is still stays. It's got to be a kind of where our focus is.
Councilor Long? Councilor Long?
Agree with that, with what Scott just said.
Councilor Long? I was hoping to attend the rest of the meeting virtually. I have to run out, if that's all right with the board.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'll be hopping on Zoom in about 2 minutes.
Okay, great.
Thank you all.
For
Yep.
letting us know.
I'll still be attending. I have to get on the road. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Shall we move on?
Yep, let's.
Okay. B, on the third page of the packet. To make strategic investments of urban renewal funds so that unused and underused properties can be placed in productive condition and utilized in a manner consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and implementing ordinances. I can read that again if you'd like.
No, I have it in front of me, but
think very similar to the first one. I mean, it's just taking that next step and saying, you know, we want to increase, I mean, essentially helping to increase, you know, property values or increase the tax revenues, obviously. So by doing something with properties that are not being currently used. So it seems like a valuable objective.
Keep it.
I would keep it.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
I would keep it. I would also, how I read that also is sometimes we're doing things that aren't necessarily increasing the tax base. Like the first one, we specifically are saying increase the value. The second one could also be placing something unused or underused in productive condition, like an additional parking lot, but it's not necessarily going to add.
But I would hope that we're not doing that just because we want a parking lot. We're doing that
Yeah.
because we're trying to entice other businesses and make life easier for other businesses that are generating more I mean, so it's this trickle down effect, not just.
So maybe we should think of a additional clarifying sentence, just so the future people reading this know that that's what we meant.
That's the type of feedback I think that is really important to capture right now. Kind of tailor that second one to say, okay, we can do it, we should do it, but it needs to be encouraging private investment as a result of doing it. Something like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
The next step in all of this, we'll take a shot at revising this and bringing it back before you in January. And if you're okay with that, we will have a draft then that goes to city council. Okay. Thank you. Other comments on B? Moving on to C. Participate by means of various urban renewal activities, e.g. land acquisition and disposition, rehabilitation loans, etc., in specific opportunities for business, civic, residential, cultural, and tourist-related property to be developed, redeveloped, improved, rehabilitated, and conserved. This is a long one, I'm sorry. In ways which will, 1, encourage the expansion and development of businesses that will produce jobs for the people of the Dalles and Wasco County, or increase property values so that the area will contribute its fair share to the costs of public services provided by the city, county, schools, community college, port, and park and recreation district, or ensure a more attractive, functional, and economically viable city, or conserve historically significant places and properties. Thoughts on all of that?
I think it's still relevant. Anyone else?
Okay.
I
Ready to
think
move on?
I think C2 is redundant, but we don't need to wordsmith things, at length. But I think we already have in A that we are going to increase the value in the property tax.
I have to ask you to repeat that. I'm sorry.
I was just sorry. I'll lean more into the microphone. I was saying we don't need to go on at length wordsmithing things, but however, I do think C2 is probably redundant, and or is it C? Yeah, C2.
2.
Yeah, I think we take the point. And since we're going to go on to number D, I would say we could, in my opinion, we could probably drop that. Yes, we are local government and we need to be responsive to the needs and concerns, et cetera. But we do have like 15 or maybe 16 goals. Are we on goals? Goals and objectives. And it's rather a lot for an agency.
Yeah, we'll take it one by one because Stacy, you had something to say about C.
Well, and I'm going to say this full well understanding that I think historical places are important. I just sometimes, I guess when I read this, I struggled to make the connection of urban renewal necessarily with historical significant places and property. I'm not saying it has to go away, but it just seems a little odd to me. I mean, to me, it was more, increasing revenue, increasing tax base, not necessarily conserving historical places. I guess that one to me just seems a bit out of place, but
If I were wordsmithing on this one, I wonder if the problem isn't the word conserve. I'm thinking in terms of the different downtown properties that we're looking at rehabilitating and putting, they're historic, but we're putting them back into more productive use.
sure, but hopefully we're not doing them just because they're historical. I mean, we're doing them because, I mean, guess in my mind,
Mhm.
there's the historical society or some, there's got to be some other places that focus on historical buildings or.
I think you're right. We're not spending URA money to conserve historical properties.
Yeah,
In
that's
fact, we knocked one down and cleaned out another one, and hopefully with wisdom and all of that. But I think you're right. We could probably lose that one too.
Do we want to
I don't know.
work on the wording there or just take that one off?
Well, I agree maybe that it's redundant, but at the same time, it really does actually, it's more specific to me than previous goal. And I kind of like that. And then I also was thinking about it and, you know, we name everybody except the fire district, and the fire district, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, it has an increased cost of public service. And so I was thinking we should add it in there, but if people are saying they'd rather get rid of two, then that's another consideration. But I mean, I feel like it's kind of like this document needs to be, you know, the version of urban renewal intentions for dummies, like who comes next. We like want the consistency of what we were thinking with whoever comes next and that everybody's not reinterpreting. So
I'm kind of thinking almost that I want to flip it upside down in that, in this regard, the only restrictions, and maybe you guys can fill me on restrictions that you've run into that I've thought were absolute, is if money's going to be spent on something outside the designated boundaries. Can't do that with urban renewal money. But the wording and stuff that you have there, I don't see a whole lot of things that as long as this group goes, yeah, I think that's something we want to do. I don't see where we're restricted now. Maybe there is, but it's just sometimes it's easier to make a list of stuff that we are not able to do rather than we want to define in language all the things that we can and want to do. Does that make sense? So if you run into things that we didn't even get presented with because it just didn't meet the already approved goals and objectives, is there any projects you just went, whoa, we're not even gonna take that to the board because it clearly doesn't meet the goals and objectives?
I think these goals, these goals and objectives cover so much ground. It'd probably be hard to find something that doesn't
That's
fit
kind of what I'm saying.
somewhere or another.
And I'm okay with that, but
I think to the point of whether it has to take place within the district, that goes back to the question and the distinction between the district and the agency.
okay.
Right now, we have a district that expires. The agency doesn't necessarily expire. It could continue even without the district,
Mhm.
or we could add another district.
But if we were
Created
looking
a
at
district.
spending money on something way out west end of town where it's not considered part of the urban renewal area, you'd probably hit a headwind there, right?
It's
currently.
Well, right now, you couldn't within the current district.
That's what I'm saying.
You could create a district on
right.
the west end.
Yeah.
The originally District 9 properties were included there and they were taken out as a result of Measure 5.
There's some restriction on where we spend our money because of location.
Right, exactly.
And the rest of it, in a way I've seen it so far, and I'm the newest guy here, I think, is as long as this group says we think that's a worthy thing and we think it's going to enhance this urban renewal area and get rid of blight and those kind of things, then we can go ahead. And I don't mind having goals and objectives. And I can try to, understand from your guys' perspective, we need guidance in order to say, well, are we doing our job? Are we doing what we're asked to do? So you want the guidance. That's why we're here right now. And so that's why I ask, is there things you run into that you thought probably this group would be okay with, but there was some other restriction that was in place that maybe you want to get rid of?
Question. Josh, anything occur to you?
I think recently when we were discussing the adoption of the incentive program, we went through, really laid out those projects that considered to be eligible and ineligible.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of it was a call by the board, really. By statute, urban renewal funds can be rather flexible. It's really of how it's defined in your plan. And I think what we have in front of us is a plan with these goals and objectives that, as Board Member Richardson mentioned, I mean, there's 16 of them. So I think it really gives staff and it gives the board quite a bit of flexibility to fund really whatever board is interested in funding at a certain period.
And
of
that's
time.
okay. And I guess what I'm asking is, you guys need goals and objectives so that you can sit down and ask yourselves, are we meeting these? But if there's something that the board can do to make it clearer what we want from you, then we should work on that. But I don't know if that's an issue right now or not.
I think that the feedback I'm receiving is in talking with businesses, and this is probably later discussion, and probably really thinking more of the January,
That's
February,
fine.
tweaking perhaps the incentive program. The topic of roofs has come up over and over again.
Topic of what?
Whether we fix roofs, maintain roofs.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to, we don't do that now.
I see.
And there's, that's going to be quite a discussion, I think, when we get to it. I really don't want to try to tackle that one
That's fine.
tonight. The scope and breadth of the loan program that used to occur and loan buy down program, things of that nature. Those are tweaks within the incentive program that we may want to take a look at. Again, not tonight, but to answer your question, when we get into the list of eligible and ineligible programs, right now, some are not eligible.
Okay.
And that is going to be a policy discussion. So thank you for asking.
I
that.
just, in
There may be others.
the work I did, I didn't usually have to sit around and go, well, what is the goals and objectives? I felt like it was pretty clearly defined, but I don't know about from where you guys sit. Are we needing better definition? And if you don't, then, and so far we're moving forward like, yeah, that looks good. That looks good. It's kind of redundant, but it isn't putting a negative anywhere by putting that redundancy in there.
And if there are opportunities, to the point about there being a lot of them, and yeah, there are a lot of them. If you see opportunities, if there's redundancies here, now's a good time. Point them out. We can do some wordsmithing. Come back to you in January with something. I'm going to go on to the next one. D, to be responsive to the needs and the concerns of all people of the city of the Dalles and the details of amending and implementing the urban renewal plan using multiple forms of outreach, including town hall meetings, the internet, news releases, and signs on projects. And you almost need to look at the next one too, because there's a lot of overlap here. E, to encourage the maximum amount of public involvement, citizen participation in the formation and implementation of the urban renewal plan by explaining and discussing the details of the urban renewal process to the public at town hall type gatherings, to special interest groups, public service organizations, public bodies, and the general public by invitation to agency meetings, by issuing periodic news releases, by cooperating with the print and electronic news media, by being available to discuss the urban renewal plan and process by use of the internet. Keep in mind too, that when these were developed, we were forming the urban renewal plan. So this one to me sounds a little bit dated. It's important to keep people posted on what's going on, but within the context of we have an urban renewal plan going forward. Just probably an editorial comment on my part.
It appears D and E are so closely related, you could put them both together into one.
And yeah, I agree. And I think it's still a valuable component. I mean, so many different agencies are obvious what they do, but I think for a lot of people in the community, and maybe that's why sometimes we run a little astray with folks, is they don't really necessarily understand, you know, what we're trying to accomplish and what we've done, and why does it make sense that we've helped this building or helped with that building. And how does that affect them and their business and their livelihood, and how, you know, what new employees were hired. I mean, some of the problem I think with this overall is that it's not super measurable and attainable. I mean, all of those good goals that we learned in our younger years. So so it's fluffy a little bit. And I think the more that we can communicate at least what we're doing, and why we're doing it, um, I don't think we can do it enough, I guess.
And if I could echo that as well, I think in my conversation with the two of you, I really, and certainly in the feedback that I gave, I do think we need to be more proactive with, even if it's just a set annual or quarterly town hall meeting. I do think we need to be more proactive in sharing the vision and the success and the challenges, just to get rid of some of the myths out there. And also, I think to build trust and to give folks the opportunity to have their voice heard. I think we need to embrace kind of new media opportunities since this was last updated. There's certainly other avenues that we can use to get that information out. And I'm not sure if it fits in there quite right. But I would also really like to see the agency get more aggressive when it comes to lobbying elected officials at the state and federal level to make sure that we're getting all the grant money and all of the funding that we possibly can. The legislature each biennium hands out hundreds of millions of dollars. I think in this most recent session, the Dow's only ended up with 50,000, which was great for the project at the Civic. But looking at counties next door on both sides, they got a lot more than that. And when it comes to federal funding as well, they're just massive amounts of our tax dollars sitting there that get handed out somewhere. And I think it'd be great if the agency spent some time really, building relationships and coalitions with lawmakers to make sure we can bring home additional funding that then helps offset the cost for a lot of these projects.
The Dallas Community Outreach Team has long had that, and I could see some sort of a goal that would more specifically draw a connection between what we're talking about here and what the outreach team. That's the type of editorial tweak we might offer to you in January. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd echo that as well. And the thing that both staff Josh and the chair Darcy and I spoke about before I came on was the need to sort of evangelize the good things that have happened, because there's a lot of good that has happened. And I think it's too easy for people to focus on the negativity or rumor mill. And I think that's one of the areas that we definitely can do a better job of, right? So I'd like to see something very specific. Like this is good. I think at the time that this was drafted, it was probably the internet was like very new still, right? So, but I like to continue to echo what Marcus was saying. Like there's specific things I think that we should be putting in here that show both a venue to announce things or get feedback back from the community, other than looking at social media posts that are kind of hard to follow, or can be kind of hard to follow. I think that we should be specific in the venue and specific in the the timing, like making sure that there's adequate room for comment and things like that, rather than, because if you have to scour the city's website,
Yeah.
it can be a little bit cumbersome to folks that aren't used to that. So I'd love to see something specific to those two things.
Some before and after photos on the website.
Yeah.
This would be perfect for a story map you've seen reports online in the very graphical and sort of a geographical format, which really gives people an idea of a project that has parts scattered over some geographical area over time. This seems like a perfect candidate for a story map. Yeah.
Interactive map, focus on something and it brings up detail and photos.
Yeah, Google it up. There'll be some, or I can send you a couple of examples I've seen that I like.
Okay.
Yeah, we've created one. We have the software to create them. I'd like to get more involved with them.
They take
They're
time.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
Thank you. We're going to work on D and E and come back with a draft in January. Comment, good feedback. F, we talked about this one already. To provide an adequate amount of properly located and designed off-street parking, including disabled parking. Now, here's a case where we need to change a term specifically. That term is outmoded. Parking in the downtown area, including a plan and program to effectively pay for, manage, and maintain such parking. Keep it, change it. Keep it.
I kind of feel like after tonight's investment, we can maybe declare victory on the parking, but that's just me.
He said you want to change one of the words in there to more updated, acceptable. Was it?
Hold, I'm going to have to ask you to get closer to that microphone. My hearing is just not that good, sir.
And I think of the word you want to replace disabled with, and I'm all for it, but I'm not sure. And I know the term. Yeah.
There's appropriate terminology that we'll plug into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
ADA accessible, for example.
Yeah.
I'd leave it.
Leave?
Mm-hmm.
Update the term, but leave?
Update the term, yeah.
Okay. G, to create positive linkages among the two sectors, between the two sectors of the urban renewal area, i.e. the downtown and West Gateway area. Here again, we're getting into a little bit of history of the original intent, and I don't know that this is still that relevant. What do you think?
No.
I don't even know what that means, really. I mean, talking about building a new bridge, what is, yeah, it, to Stacy's earlier point, not only is there not a metric, it's like, I'm reasonably educated and I really couldn't define what the hell that means. So I would say let it go personally, but I have a bigger red pin for some of these things than other people.
Before the change in geographic area, I think this made more sense, right? Is that correct? I mean,
is
so it's
probably-
really not.
Yeah, this is like that connection between kind of downtown where everybody really considers to be the urban renewal area. Then you go under the underpass out to Weber Street. That's still the urban renewal area and it's kind of forgotten about at times. So, I mean, and the fact that we still need to try to include that area when we're looking into investments for the urban renewal agency, it could be. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking down the road, new district, West Second. Just keep in mind, we could pull that one for now.
I'd pull it.
Know what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
H, to cooperate, coordinate, and assist in funding with the program to improve access and connections from downtown to the riverfront, and to provide facilities such as trails and a public dock to enhance public use of the riverfront. Now, of course, this was before construction of the maritime terminal, but I also heard a comment earlier about public beach that could be developed. So
That would be the enhanced public use of the riverfront. That would support that.
keep, change, modify.
For now, keep, but
Okay. I, to improve the visual appearance, capacity, and traffic flow of streets that carry the major share of vehicular and pedestrian traffic in areas where development would otherwise be inhibited.
I'd cut that one. I don't see where that's my own opinion.
I missed it, sir. What was it?
I would, in my opinion, cut that one. It doesn't make a traffic flow in streets. We have other agencies that focus on that. And the original mission doesn't really support that, but in my opinion, I would cut that.
Is are the trees and the matching lighting and benches and that kind of thing, are those covered somewhere else?
Under K,
They are.
So,
They
yeah,
are.
so it's,
Street furniture, night lighting, landscaping in areas of maximum pedestrian concentration.
so it seems like you could cut that without hurting anything.
right?
And goal I ultimately was one of those, the agency could have referenced goal I when they did the roundabout, when they did the Second Street streetscape project, the I-84 underpass, First Street
Right.
project. So clearly a goal that has been,
It is now outdated.
Okay, delete.
Opportunity to declare victory in an honest way and say, we did the work, looked better.
I agree.
Carry on. What's next? Yeah.
That part of the mission accomplished. J, to assist property owners in the rehabilitation of their buildings and property to the extent that it helps implement the intent of redevelopment goals, policies, and standards, especially where rehabilitation may spur additional redevelopment activity. Relevant? Not relevant? Relevant?
Well, let's look at the neon sign Elks building and the development that's transpired because of that investment with the new carousel coming in. So that's been very vital, I think. So in my opinion, J should stand.
I think to your list, the incentive program falls squarely within this.
Yeah.
Well, okay. A, to install and maintain coordinated street furniture, night lighting, and landscaping in areas of maximum pedestrian concentration, including alley rights of way in the downtown area.
Yep.
Good with it?
Yes.
Okay.
More to do there too. Yeah. More opportunities there.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
L, in conjunction with specific urban renewal development or redevelopment projects, supplement existing funding sources to construct, install, or replace publicly owned utility systems such as water, storm drains, and sanitary sewers where existing facilities are inadequate, undersized, or otherwise substandard.
Josh, maybe you can help me, or even Dan, maybe can, this is the one that I kind of struggled with when I read it initially, because we might want to maybe be more specific, right? Because when I read replace publicly owned utility systems such as water, storm drains, sanitary sewers, I think the intent was to help with things like SDC offsets and things like that, right? But I also like the way that I read it right now, it also sort of in my head like suggests somehow that urban renewal is tied at the hip with public works and because there's budget in public works, right, to replace some of the infrastructure and things like that. So can we maybe be more specific with that
I think
statement? Because I think it falls in, if it's in line with what I think the intent was with like SDC offsets, that kind of thing, I think it's applicable. I don't know.
historically on this one, keep the Second Street reconstruction in mind. So there was infrastructure associated with that. At one time, Third Street was in a reconfiguration, redevelopment of Third Street. Now we have First Street. That's an urban renewal, and there's definitely infrastructure associated with that. So it's probably both. I think it probably covers both those topics. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, I don't think it would cover SDCs, but if that is an extra goal that would, the agency would be considered an adding of some kind of, agency assisting in SDC offsets, that could potentially be added in. L is, I mean, as we know that Dallas is so old, we have very old piping
Mhm.
through our town, and downtown has most of it. And I don't know what the replacement rate is of what our new systems look like, but it's, I would imagine that quite a bit of that old system has been updated in the past 30 years, but there's probably still more to go.
Certainly on First Street, I think.
Yeah.
And with those expensive projects, typically what you're doing is braiding different funding sources. So public works plus urban renewal plus state grants plus federal grants, keeping that mix out there.
Well, I wouldn't go on the warpath personally over this particular goal, but it sort of seems like a goal in search of a home or whatever, a problem in search of us. And given that, I think we are down to $6 million, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Around 6 million for MI.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any one of these projects can chew up the majority of that. So maybe it's time to let that one go. I don't know.
Well, I'm trying to think specifically, the Tony's project is going on, and if there wasn't that stated in there, is there gonna be some kind of problem like, well, we thought we could develop or sell that to become a grocery store, but then, we weren't able to, make the plumbing and water supply adequate for the projected project, because that's not in there. I mean, is that potentially a problem, or, I mean, normally the city would supply the water lines and everything up to a certain point, right? Public Works, like he's saying, but then the rest of it would be, you know, up to whoever was constructing a new facility, I would think. But
I think keep in mind, going back to that blending of different funding sources. So not relying on urban renewal heavily for this one, but urban renewal is a component. And thinking also in terms of the future, if the agency were to continue and if there were to be a new district on the west side, there's going to be a lot of need out there. And so this is one I would encourage keeping, maybe modifying, but keep that option, because if you delete this one, then you are taking that option off the table of contributing toward costs that, yeah, that one of these projects by itself, if you focus simply on urban renewal, it'd blow that 6 million overnight.
Yeah, and I think it's important too, thinking about improving or adding to residential uh facilities and stuff along, Second Street or something like that. I think it's going to be important to keep that in there, because we may need to, like, I can't think of a building off the top of my head, but I'm sure that as we go through there, some of the buildings that back up to the parking and whatnot on First Street are going to have to be updated. And I'm not sure that, I don't know, I'm not sure that, like, piping sizes and stuff like that are going to be adequate for, putting in more residential units and stuff like that. So, but maybe just rewording.
Yeah, and I think the thing to keep in mind here is, these are, granted, the city or the agency has one district, and these goals and objectives. I know we're taking some off the list here because some have been accomplished, but basically taking some off the list, that the agency ultimately won't be supporting those types of projects going forward if another district. So it's just something to consider. So if there's a new district established somewhere else in town and it needs brand new streetscape improvement, and the agency basically, you've taken off that goal of being able to fund it and then going back last to do brand new streetscape, look back at your goals and objectives and say, we don't have anything in our objectives that support new streetscape or new infrastructure. So that's also something to keep in mind as we kind of do this exercise, that although we're taking some off the list because we've already checked the box and we've accomplished some of these projects, thing is that Hopefully the goal with the strategic planning is still working with a document that is for the agency. It's not a document for this district. So,
Thank you. That's helpful. Oh, I strike my previous comments. Keep it on there.
A little bit, not entirely off topic, but a fascinating conversation with Elaine Howard a couple of weeks ago, asking the question, what can we do as a district? Support of recreational facilities, school facilities, infrastructure leading to things like that. All fields even. I didn't know that. Urban renewal has helped with things like that.
Yep. Yeah, and I think the example specifically urban renewal wouldn't be able to assist the development of a school.
No.
But the infrastructure
Support
leading
infrastructure.
up to that school, urban tool.
Exactly. Thank you
Yep.
for that clarification.
Yep.
Okay. We okay?
Yep.
M, to leverage the agency's financial resources to the maximum extent possible with other public and private investments and other public and private funding sources. I just spoke to that one, but we want to keep that one in there. I think definitely we might tweak that a little bit, but okay.
Would it be appropriate maybe to consider even sort of an example as like making the urban renewal agency a partner in going after funding, right? Like Marcus mentioned earlier that like looking at the state and federal funding grants and things like that, that there's a lot of money out there. And I think if as a board or something, we have that storyboard and examples of things that have succeeded, I think that would be huge as a stakeholder to, if we're going to spend the money, we ought to be able to participate in going out and finding it. So I'd be curious if that's maybe an appropriate place to park that. I'm not sure how to word it, but
Something like actively advocating in partnership with other agencies and organizations and work that into that
sure.
phrase in some way. Okay. All right, we're working through them. Thank you. N, to install underground utilities in areas of urban renewal projects, including alley rights of way in the downtown area. Here's one to Josh's comment, to install underground utilities in areas of urban renewal projects. Think in terms of the agency, not the district. But that second one is definitely a reference to the district, downtown area.
Strike the specific downtown area.
Take that reference out, but yeah.
Can we combine N with
L.
L?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what should happen.
Yeah, makes sense.
Chair Wong,
Yes.
I had a question for staff that I didn't know the answer to. Josh, to your knowledge, has the agency supported this particular goal in recent years? In any way?
Goal N?
The goal that addresses the undergrounding of utilities.
That would be Second Street. I know that we've done that.
The city completed a feasibility study of undergrounding. The city has really heavily been looking into that, and I don't know. I do not believe the agency.
So it was part of the original consideration for the basalt commons before it finalized into what it is now. So that was part of it. And then also with Q Life, we talked about doing some things with underground utilities and having PUD pay part of it and urban renewal pay part of it because it's very expensive. But there were some reasons that for aesthetics and some other things where it was in the way, in the right of way. So we were looking for ways of funding from multiple sources to make that happen. And then it just ended up that we didn't do it at this moment, but I know it's really being looked at seriously.
Thank you so much for that context. In my read of it, it seemed out of place. Not that there's anything inconsistent with that goal with the purpose of the agency or with urban renewal at the state level. It seemed very consistent in my opinion. for my money, I couldn't place a single urban renewal agency project that involved that. And so to put it up there with the rest of the goals, I just had a question about it. So I appreciate the board indulging me on that. Thank you.
Are we okay with it the way it stands, or do we want to delete that down
In.
on N? Yes.
It made sense to move it up into L like people suggested.
Leave it, but consolidate with L?
Yep.
Okay. Great. With that, we've gone through the goals and objectives. Casey.
Would it be appropriate or perhaps a better order? And I'm not sure, I mean, I could think through it, but some of these are specific, like we're talking about the underground utilities, and then others are more, we want to leverage our financial resources. It seems like maybe you start kind of, very broad and generally, then you get, or one way or the other, but they kind of seem a little bit hit and miss, as to continuity and order. Not that it matters, Dan, but
Oh, I think that's good. Good point.
Major topic areas, really.
yeah,
Some sort of a
maybe
structure.
group like things together and figure out some nice order so they flow a little nicer.
It would certainly make it easier to follow.
Yeah, exactly, because it does feel a little disjointed, huh?
We've dropped a few. Should we add any? Are we missing any big, broad goals, objectives?
I still think the big piece to consider adding is like proactively going after and advocating for like other potential sources of revenue. Does that, and maybe before we look at doing that, maybe this is a question for Jonathan or Josh. I believe the answer is yes, but is it appropriate for urban renewal to participate in like identifying funding sources outside of our tax? Like,
A great question. Yeah.
So leveraging money outside,
going and finding it and bringing it in, and
as far as,
I don't think there's any.
I mean, sounds like kind of an administrative thing as far as
Yeah.
staff handling, potential funding sources that.
Applying for grants.
Are we thinking bring it into urban renewal and having it go out as urban renewal funds? Or are you thinking about helping the projects that come to us and are getting some urban renewal to find other sources to finish their project?
Yes, I guess yes, as I think about this a little bit more, forming the thought, if there's a grant, for example, that fits the goals and objectives of the URA, is it appropriate to bring it into like a budget line item into the urban renewal, into like projects by urban renewal or something like that to fund projects? Or is it better to advocate and leave that to things like Main Street and other organizations that maybe would add to?
I don't think we should ever close the door on opportunities for grants. We're looking all the time.
Yeah.
And definitely partnering though with Main Street, with the city, any other organization out there. And typically those partnerships make a stronger grant application anyway. But I think if we see a grant, then bring it forward.
Grants don't typically come general enough to us to put into our budget, but yes, for helping other people with their specific projects, absolutely. Because usually with most grants, at least these days, you have to say specifically what it's going to go to, and then you have to have measurable outcomes, we wouldn't want to take that on for somebody else, but point taken to help them get the money to make the project happen.
And I think Mill Creek Greenway is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
there you go.
That's good.
Parks. Mhm. But to the point about advocating, lobbying for new sources, I think we took some notes on that earlier, but it could be a new goal. We'll take another look at what we have in here already and at least maybe pull that out a little bit more. See if it needs to be something new.
Mm-hmm.
Leverage agencies' financial resources. Again, actively lobbying for partnership. So we'll work on some wordsmithing, but I think we get the message. We'll bring something out on that one.
One thing that does come to mind that actually would be a good fit would be like the legislature, the Christmas tree bill at the end, because it's appropriate for the city and even the agency, because it is a government funding to then go to help a project that we're trying to help, but don't have all the funds for.
At the federal level.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other things that we're missing? I guess if you don't think of anything right now, please email me. Let us know.
Yeah, or even next time.
Yeah.
Next time around, if something comes up, next time we meet, we're going to be finalizing this. We're going to bring, the goal is bring you a set of red lines to take a look at, and from there, anything can be added or removed.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you would have mentioned it if there was, but I just want to, since people took the time to respond via email, was there anything else you want to highlight that didn't get brought up or discussed tonight that I'd like the board to know, to help consider their comments?
I think with the goals and objectives, no, that would cover it. I do wanted to go into the last section of the report on fiscal implications and give you a little bit of an update on the maximum indebtedness application.
Real quick, if we can go back to goal I, there was some kind of him and Han weren't entirely sure. This one has to do with improving the visual appearance, capacity, and traffic flow of streets. It was, I just want to remind the board that we still have a project ongoing, First Street project. And I met with our engineers on that today. We'll have more information at a later date for you, but cost escalations have really hit that project hard. So I don't want it to be a surprise to you when we come and meet in January, but the cost has increased quite a bit, and there will be some additional, agency staff will be requesting at a later date some additional funds to go towards that project that's not already budgeted. So
we're in the middle of that project, or we haven't started that project?
we are 95% plans at this point. We went over the first set of red lines for those plans. And there is just, considerable. One of the increases, before we go too far, one of the increases as we got into actually looking at this retaining wall that we're going to be constructing, there's a 300% increase of what we initially thought the cost was going to be, because we got underneath the Baldwin Saloon. So if you walk around the Baldwin Saloon, there's a cavity underneath it. It's an entire tunnel. And how it's built is, the initial thought was that we would just take that cavity and fill it, and build your sidewalk on top of it, typical construction for a sidewalk. After doing the geotech report on it, adding that additional charge onto the building itself could result in foundation failures to the building. So it's going to require something called micro piles, and there's basically a bunch of piers that are installed in that cavity. You're still going to have basically open cavity underneath it, but that was a considerable increase to the project. So just a heads up there. As far as keeping it on a goal, hopefully at least till we finish First Street, maybe we'll keep that one on.
Well, and I appreciate you bringing that back up, because I'm rethinking that one. Again, thinking of the agency versus district discussion, west side. There are a lot of, frankly, haphazard side streets and transportation routes out on the entire west side. So might want to keep that one in there.
We could wordsmith it though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some of it in there, and that's, we'll take a stab at it and present to you at a later date.
So the First Street project, the retaining wall you're talking about that's really costly, is just to kind of salvage the existing buildings mostly?
Salvage is maybe one way to put it, I guess. To not
retaining walls,
cause additional damage to historic structures that we have down there. Yeah. So if you look out on First Street, you'll see we have some basalt walls that are, various levels, various time periods of when they were all installed. You can imagine moving all of those walls and starting all over again. That's what retaining wall portion of that project entails. So
It helps hold First Street up so it doesn't just slough down.
it does. Yeah. It's essentially creating these walls in a way that they are entirely separated from the buildings themselves. So you can remove the building and nothing will happen to the wall, or you can remove the wall and nothing happens to the building. So there's about a 3-inch gap between where the retaining wall is going to be and the existing building. So it does allow then for future development of lots down there. So it's yeah, I mean, it's pretty intricate, kind of cool. But quite an increase in overall cost, and then just cost escalations of material. So
It just helps me if I drive down there, I'll kind of know what I'm looking for to get my head around what the challenges are.
Yep.
Hey, folks, again, other thoughts occur to you, let us know, and we'll have another shot at this in January. I'll go into fiscal a little bit here. We've been working with the consultants, and contingent upon our finance director reviewing the spreadsheets, our fairly close estimate, I would say right now, remaining maximum debt between now and 2029 is 6,253,656. 756. That's the number, that's the debt, that remaining debt from the original authorization, which is around 29 million going off of memory. And that's been a number of years ago. So going back to the city council role, the city council can increase debt. City council can change the district boundaries and change goals and objectives. Those are the three things that fall within the purview of the city council. Identifying new projects, changing projects, things like that. That's the purview here. But that's the budget, long-term budget that we basically have to work with for the next 5 years. While there are no fiscal impacts directly arise from modifications to goals and objectives, there will be significant implications as the agency identifies projects through which goals and objectives will be implemented. And again, that's the discussion we want to hit pretty hard in January, February. The intent in reviewing and if needed, modifying the goals and objectives is to provide the agency direction in achieving maximum indebtedness by 2029. Board could direct staff to identify a selected number of relatively large investments that would, in combination with existing and anticipated known commitments, such as Basalt Commons and First Street, fully commit maximum debt by 2029. We could do that in the short term. Or the board could direct staff to place priority upon opportunities that may arise in the coming 4 or 5 years, but which have not yet been identified or even envisioned, or a combination of both. And I would ask you to be thinking of those questions, those 2 questions, and we'll be asking your guidance in January. Any comments now would be more than welcome. So any initial guidance we would certainly welcome on those 2 points. Kind of a strategic question.
Thoughts?
I would propose, having thought about this, a moderate amount, not a great deal, but a moderate amount, that we sort of take a hybrid approach, that we identify a few key things that we want to lean into. And I would propose First Street, Tony's site, and the plaza or town square idea, which is also right there and linked with First Street and Tony's, as the sort of the key things to lean into, and then use the rest as, I forgot how you put it, opportunities arise, essentially. Yeah. If there's any left over.
I also support hybrid.
Helps wrap up
Mhm.
things that are not quite finished.
Yeah. And it does say by 2029, but this board has discussed a number of times that we're not trying to stretch it out. We're trying to get the money to good projects sooner rather than later if they are available to us.
Yeah. 2029 is the current repayment schedule.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the previous direction and guidance established that under the current plan of repayments. There was discussion, I know at one point, of accelerating those, trying to pay it off earlier,
Yeah.
but okay.
Okay.
With that, I think that kind of wrapped up this phase. I appreciate your guidance. We'll have a draft, as Chuck mentioned, red line for you in January.
Great.
Any comments or not really?
Yeah, I'm trying to get back to my agenda and I can't on the, here we go. Um, Are there,
Agenda.
oh, I thought you were trying to give me that note.
Oh,
And I was like,
sorry.
what is that? Okay, we still have a couple members in the audience. Did either one of you want to make a comment on the discussion item that we just had? Any thoughts? If you come forward, that'd be great. I'm sorry. Yeah, we got to have it on the recording. Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
Check. I'm not sure if it's it is going to be included, but there is an interest in the signage at the used, a definite interest in the signage used at the used car and truck lot. The location would be 1 block from there and on a used car lot. The person restores classic cars, and you may know of a very nice gentleman. And I said that I would mention it, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to mention that.
Okay, thank you. That's a really interesting idea, actually. Okay, next item, board member comments or questions. I'll just start with Marcus. Anybody?
I just want to thank staff for obviously for everything tonight, but also as the newest person, I wanted to thank you for your time. I reached out and demanded that we meet for at least an hour, and I rapid fired questions at you, and I learned a lot. I just really appreciate you taking that time. I know you're busy, so thank you.
All questions welcome. Every time I hear a question, I learn something new myself
There you
because
go.
I have to figure out the answer. And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for taking the time.
About you, Walt, question or comment?
Well, when I very first came, we spent just a little bit of time trying to quickly give me a little bit of education on what I was getting into, and appreciate that. And I'm still on a steep learning curve. But I just want to say if there comes a time that you have some time you want to set aside and give me a call and kind of set up a time to meet with me and further explain one-on-one, that would probably be helpful to me. It's not mandatory in any way, but a lot of the history you covered and everything, but I'm still interested in a little bit of one-on-one if that at some time meets with somebody's schedule.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Is anything?
Thank you.
I just want to say thanks for taking the time to meet with me and get me that history report, because it certainly helped fill in some gaps that I just had. Like, yeah, I think it was a good education for myself to better understand why things were written the way they were and whatnot with the goals and objectives from the past, and so that I can better understand how they might need to change. So that was definitely helpful.
Great. Anything? Okay. Tim?
No comments, no reports.
Scott, nothing? Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to thank everybody. We've got a pretty new board. At least half the members are new. And I know it's a lot of work to be on this board. And I just really appreciate that everyone right now who's on here is taking the time to do the review and is very thoughtful and has excellent questions and brings up points. So we have a lot of diversity, which I think is going to lead us to the best decisions possible. And I'm really excited for the agency, and I'm very thankful for staff and the audience members who came and made comments.
Thank you. This is a big commitment on all of your part. Put in
It's
a lot of
huge.
time into this. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so any staff comments or project updates?
Okay, I'll have a few updates. You should all have received calendar invites for this meeting going and future meetings going forward, just for scheduling purposes. Reminder, the next meeting in January will be January 30th, not the 16th, and that is driven by our consultant's schedule. She was not available on the 16th, and we really need to have Elaine at this next meeting and Nick from Tiberius Solutions to go into detail on the financials, the fiscal aspects of this. It will be, yeah, that's right, Elaine in January and Nick in February. February will be the usual meeting date. Signage, some of the feedback we received on the questions originally talked to the need for better public relations. We certainly talked about that tonight. We will be exploring putting signs. We'll be going out for some quotes. This has been an urban renewal project. This is an urban renewal project, just kind of calling attention to some of the things we've done and currently are doing. Some of the incentive programs are 3 or 4 underway right now. So we'll put a yard sign out, whatever it might be. On incentive program, we have a new entrance on East 3rd Street, 315 Federal, the grocery store going in there. They're making progress. That's an incentive program. The recreation project is on track for certificate of occupancy by March, if not earlier. God is closing in quickly on all of that. Sigmund's, the Oak Hotel, that's Michael Leash, is working with the new Main Street Board on grant reporting. They have a $200,000 Main Street grant, and there's a case where urban renewal can supplement that. So we're talking and working closely with Michael Leash on that one.
Sorry, Dan, just very briefly, the Main Street grant, is it a capacity grant or is it a project grant?
The
Main Street grant, the 200,000, is it
grant.
to rebuild Main Street or is it to do a specific?
I need to check that one. I'm not sure, but
All right, thank you.
yeah, it's specific to the Oak Hotel. Yep. It's the facade. The Main Street is facade of that building. So urban renewal will be looking at the interior, some of the additional work that needs to take place upstairs. STCs, for instance, mixed use and commercial.
Thank you.
That is the extent of my report. Josh?
Yeah, but a couple things for you. The other thing to add into the incentive program, you may have seen if you were on 4th Street today or past couple of days, forklift that's trying to get this massive pillar leveled correctly on the Foley building. So the agency funded that project. So there's a little bit of revamping done to that building, but really that one was a pillar that was starting to lean this way. So pretty substantial project, but the agency was able to fund that one. So if you see some work happening out there on pretty much the corner of Union and 4th, that's what's going on. The Tony's building, it's we're having a fence installed. It will be installed by the end of this year. And then that's kind of a wrap on the Tony's building for right now. So it was a pleasure working for the demo contractor that we worked with. Also Stantec Consulting Services provided the archaeological services on it. I'm waiting for the final report on that. Another thing to keep in mind, there has been this mention of that sign at the parking lot that we just discussed this evening. You know, we will try to take a closer look at it, but you know, the hope is that maybe we can work with some of our local sign experts on it to try and take the sign and repurpose it on the property. One initial thought is it's currently facing kind of on the street frontage. If we can take it and kind of move it to the back portion of the property, still maintain the sign, make a couple modifications here and there. So at this time, I think I'm not sure where the agency fits in on that one, but just wanted to provide you with an update on the overall parking lot. And then lastly, I will be just wanted to get any input or any concerns. I brought this up at a previous meeting, but I will be waiving as the agency manager, waiving the conflict of interest for a new intergovernmental agreement that we will be entering into with the Parks Department and the city. And this is for the disbursement of our SDC funds with the incentive program. So that is, although the Basalt Commons was approved, the agency has committed the money, $855,000 for SDCs. That those SDCs will not be dispersed until a certain time. And that certain time still needs to be entirely, but it will be dispersed, excuse me, it'll be dispersed to the developer at when the city issues the building permit. But it's the matter of if a project, and hope this doesn't happen, if a project were to fall through after the agency has funded it, what's the mechanism to make sure the agency gets the money back? So in the event that in most cases, what would happen, we issue a building permit, $855,000 goes away. That gets dispersed to the city and it gets dispersed to the Parks Department. Well, as soon as it shows up in a bank account, it would be the intent of that district to use the money. We want to ensure that there is a mechanism in place that if a project after it's funded falls apart, the agency still gets that money back instead of it going into a project that doesn't go anywhere. So more to come on that one. It may not need to come in front of the board for approval. It's just an IGA between the city Parks Department. It's not for a set amount, but it will be for the incentive programs, all incentive programs moving forward. So if there's any questions or concerns with waiving that conflict of interest, the conflict of interest is that the city attorney will be working on it on the city side of things, as well as working with the agency on the agency side of things. All right.
Thank you.
And yeah, other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful holiday and a happy new year, and see you in January.
All right, with that, the meeting is adjourned.